trifecta. I was a player in several psychodramas, then I got to be the client in my own psychodrama, and this past week I got to counsel someone through their psychodrama. Very cool. My role as a counselor leading up to the psychodrama was to really get to know my client. So we went through this enormous questionnaire to look at my client's life experiences and uncover patterns and limiting beliefs that developed over time that are still affecting my client's current behaviors and thought patterns in the present. It took several sessions. We probably spent like 8 to 10 hours together in total. So the day of the actual psychodrama, I had to do a half-an-hour presentation to my class to introduce my client to them so they understood all of the life events that we were going to be covering in the psychodrama and perhaps why those were things that we wanted to address today. Then we went right into it. So while the client is reenacting scenes from their past, it is my job as a counselor to hold space for them, both physically and emotionally, and encourage them to say all of the things that they need to say. If they start to back down, you encourage them to find their voice. If they start to cry, you ask them what words are behind the tears. If you see them jump into their head and they start to overthink things, you ask them what feelings are attached to those thoughts to get them right back into their body. If you see hurt or sadness come up, you encourage them to talk about that hurt. Talk about the sad. If they're being really passive or sort of nonchalant, you remind them of all of the things that this person has done to them in the past and you ask them if that's okay. Usually they'll be like, no, it's not okay, and then they get right into their anger. Also, as a counselor, it was my responsibility to direct the players. So if I thought my client needed to be provoked a little more, I'd ask them to amp it up, and if I felt like my client had reached their limit and they needed a chance to be heard, I'd ask them to tone it down or pull back. If I needed to trigger my client, I could feed them lines, and I felt like I was conducting an orchestra up there. It was really cool. I did have an instructor up there with me, so there was extra support for my client as well as for myself. The instructor would sometimes speak quietly just to me and make suggestions about where I could go, which was a really great way for me to learn. So as opposed to just giving it my best shot and then getting feedback later from my instructor about what worked and what didn't, I actually had someone up there with me, guiding me through and giving me suggestions so I could say the things in the moment and see them land and see them work with my client. And for me, that will definitely stick. I will remember that way better than if somebody just says, try this next time. Because I already tried it and I saw it work. So I know it works. And so I'll do it again. A big piece of counseling somebody through their psychodrama is also becoming emotionally in tune with that person. This means not only am I finding empathy for this person and what they are going through, but I'm actually feeling it and living it in my own body with them. So I breathe with them. I voice agreement when they are recounting all of the wrongs that these people have done to them. If they back up, I come with them, but I encourage them to stand forward. If they crouch down, I go down with them, but I encourage them to rise up and face the person. If they cry, however, you don't want to actually cry with them because you don't want to take any of the emotion away from them or get too much into your own stuff that you stop focusing on them. It is all about the client and you don't want them to switch out of it and all of a sudden feel like they have to start caretaking you. So when they cry, you just validate the tears and you encourage them to talk about those tears. It's quite complex, actually. I've never watched somebody so closely. In my other semesters when I was counseling or coaching people, sometimes I could see an emotion come up or you could catch like a little twitch of facial expression or movement and I would try to probe or ask about it, but it was far more subtle and it was far less frequent. Whereas here, when you're up there, it's an emotional storm and you can see everything coming. I have never been so in tune with what is going on for another human being in my life, and it was pretty freaking cool. Overall, I enjoyed the experience, all three pieces, being a player, a client, and a counselor, and I am so happy that it's over. Holy smokes, we just did 6 weeks of emotional wellness and it's been really intense and I just feel super drained. I could have slept for 5 more hours this morning. However, that could also be because it was snowing when I woke up this morning. It is November 3rd and I had to brush off my car before I left my house. Like, what is that, Vancouver? It's okay. I will just start listening to holiday music and baking Christmas cookies and I'm sure it'll make me feel a lot better. That is all I have for you today for a little lesson with a touch of insight. Next week, we are starting 6 weeks of mental wellness. So a lot more theory and looking at our thought processes. So all in our head. Thank God. I will see you next week.